Your 30s are the single most consequential decade for your financial future. Not your 20s, when you're still figuring things out. Not your 40s, when many doors have already closed. Your 30s. This is the decade when the decisions you make will reverberate through the next 30 years of your life, compounding in ways that feel invisible right now, but become undeniable by the time you reach 60. If you want to understand why this decade matters so much, and what the 4 biggest financial choices actually are, stick around. And if this kind of content helps you think differently about money, subscribe to the channel. We break down financial reality in ways that actually stick. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Your 30s are when lifestyle inflation becomes a real problem. In your 20s, you probably made less money and had lower expectations. You didn't own much. Your apartment was small. You drove a used car. Your furniture came from IKEA or hand-me-downs. But in your 30s, something shifts. You get promoted. You change jobs and negotiate a real salary. You start seeing peers with nice things, and suddenly those things stop feeling impossible. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Can I afford the monthly payment?" That's the exact moment you're in danger. Here's why lifestyle inflation in your 30s is so dangerous. The money you don't spend today compounds into the money that funds the rest of your life. Let's say you make $50,000 a year in your late 20s. You live on $40,000 and save 10. That's a good habit. But then you get promoted to $80,000. If you let your lifestyle creep up to $70,000, you're only saving an extra $10,000. You made $30,000 more, but you kept almost none of it. Now run that forward 30 years. That $10,000 extra you could have saved every year, at 7% annual returns, that grows to over $900,000. $900,000 from one decision about whether you upgrade your apartment or car or both. The first major choice in your 30s then is this. Do you upgrade your lifestyle with your income, or do you hold the line? This might sound obvious. Obviously, you should save the money, but I want you to understand the psychology here. You've earned it. You've worked hard. You deserve nice things. Your friends are doing it. The salesperson at the dealership makes you feel like everyone drives a car like this, and you can afford the payments. That's what makes this so treacherous. You can afford them, just not permanently, not without giving up something else later. The second major choice is housing, and it's much more complicated than rent versus buy. A lot of financial advice just says, buy a house as soon as possible. Some situations call for renting. But what makes housing so important is the sheer size of the decision. A house is the largest purchase most people ever make. It locks in your costs for decades. It determines where you work, where your kids go to school, how much you commute, and how much you save. If you buy a house that's 50% too expensive, you won't just pay more for the house. You'll pay more for property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and utilities. You'll spend more on gas commuting from a house further out. You might even change jobs based on the location. That 50% error cascades. Here's what makes housing decisions in your 30s uniquely consequential. This is when you actually have the financial stability to buy. And this is when you face the most pressure to do it. Your parents are asking when you're buying. Your friends are getting mortgages. Interest rates feel reasonable. You're tired of paying landlords. You think, I might as well be building equity. That's when you buy a house at the top of your budget, or in a neighborhood you're stretching for, or with the assumption that your income will keep growing at the same rate forever. Then life happens. You get laid off. Your partner changes careers. You want to move for an opportunity, but you're locked in. You have a kid and realize you want a different school district than you picked, but now you're trapped. The housing choice in your 30s compounds because of leverage. You're not just risking your own money. You're risking borrowed money. If you buy a $400,000 house with a $100,000 down payment, a 10% decline in home value wipes out your entire down payment. But worse than that, you're locked in psychologically. Selling a house costs money. You'll pay realtor fees, closing costs, potentially taxes on gains. So you stay. You live in a place you're not thrilled with, in a neighborhood you outgrew, for a decade. That's a decade of your life, your 30s and into your 40s, spent in suboptimal circumstances because of a decision you made when you were 31. The third major choice is whether you actually fund your retirement accounts. I know this sounds boring, but it's the one with the most direct mathematical impact. When you're 30 and you contribute $1,000 to a retirement account, that $1,000 becomes $5,000 by age 60, assuming normal market returns. But more importantly, it's the $1,000 you don't spend on lifestyle inflation. So, a single $1,000 decision at 30 actually has two effects. One, it grows into $5,000. Two, it prevents you from getting used to spending that money, which means you save more next year, which means that grows even larger, which compounds the whole thing further. The mistake people make is waiting. They think they'll save aggressively in their 40s when they've stabilized. But by then, you've built a lifestyle. You have a mortgage. You have kids and activities. You have a car payment. You have restaurant habits. You have a vision of what your life looks like. Trying to save aggressively against that background is fighting yourself. But if you fund retirement aggressively in your 30s, you're building it into your baseline lifestyle from the start. You're not giving yourself the money to get used to spending. It goes straight to growing. The fourth major choice is education and skills. This might seem like it should have been made earlier, but here's why it matters in your 30s. This is when you decide whether you're going to invest in skills that compound or just coast on the education you have. Someone who learns programming, finance, leadership, or their industry's critical skills in their 30s will earn differently in their 40s and 50s than someone who doesn't. Someone who gets a master's or specialized certification in their 30s changes their earning trajectory. Someone who doesn't will find themselves plateaued, watching peers pull ahead. Now, all four of these choices interact. If you upgrade your lifestyle aggressively, you can't fund retirement as much. If you buy an expensive house, you can't take time off for education. If you don't invest in skills, you might not have the income to weather a housing market downturn. This is why your 30s are so high stakes. You're not making four independent decisions. You're making a series of interconnected bets about what your life will look like, and they're all placing claims on the same pool of money. The truly hard part is that the consequences aren't immediate. You can make terrible financial decisions in your 30s and feel totally fine until your mid-40s. That's the trap. You have a nice house, you drive a nice car, you go out to eat, you take vacations. You're not saving much, but you're not broke. Life feels fine. Then you hit your mid-40s and you realize you have 8 years until retirement and you've saved almost nothing. Or you realize the housing market crashed and you owe more than the house is worth. Or you realize you've been doing the same job for 12 years because you never invested in new skills and now you can't pivot. So what should you actually do in your 30s? First, be intentional about lifestyle. Don't let it inflate unconsciously. When you get a raise, split it. Let half of it improve your life. That's fair, you earned it. But force the other half to go to savings or investments or debt payoff. You'll adapt to the lifestyle improvement. You'll barely notice the money that goes to savings if you do it automatically. Second, be skeptical of housing. Calculate your actual housing budget. I don't mean the maximum a bank will lend you. I mean an honest number that lets you still save, invest, and weather emergencies. Then stick to it, even if it means buying less house or in a different area. Your future self will thank you every month. Third, fund your retirement automatically. The moment you get the job with the salary where you can contribute, set it and forget it. Give your brain no opportunity to get used to that money. It should flow from your paycheck to your retirement account without ever hitting your checking account. Fourth, invest in one significant skill or credential that improves your earning power. This might be a certification, a degree, learning to code, getting an MBA, developing expertise in your field. The details matter less than the commitment. You want to be the person who's worth more in your 40s than you are now, not someone whose market value is flat. The reason these four choices compound so powerfully over 30 years is because time and money interact. A decision about lifestyle at 30 doesn't just cost you the money you spend. It costs you 30 years of growth on the money you didn't save. A decision about housing locks you into costs, but also into location, which affects your career, which affects your income, which affects everything else. A decision about retirement funding determines your entire retirement. A decision about skills determines whether you're competitive in a changing market. These aren't just financial decisions. They're decisions that structure your entire adult life. I want to be clear about something. Having nice things isn't bad. Buying a house isn't bad. Enjoying your income isn't bad. The issue is doing these things carelessly, without understanding the trade-offs, and without realizing that the decisions you make at 30 have 30-year consequences. You might decide that having a nice car is worth the impact on your retirement. That's a legitimate choice. But at least make it consciously. At least understand what you're trading away. At least don't pretend that a $50,000 car with a $600 monthly payment doesn't matter, because you can afford it. One more thing. Comparison is the silent killer of financial discipline in your 30s. You'll see someone your age with a bigger house, a nicer car, cooler vacations. You'll think you're behind. You won't see their financial statements. You won't know they're drowning in debt, or that their parents gave them a down payment, or that they're spending every penny they make. You'll just see the visible trappings and feel like you should have them too. This is poison. Other people's visible consumption is not a valid input for your financial decisions. Your 30s are the time to get comfortable with living below your means, even though you have the means to live above them. This habit, built now, will sustain you through decades. So here's what I want you to take away. Your 30s are the hinge upon which your financial future turns. The decisions you make about lifestyle, housing, retirement, and skills will determine whether you reach 60 with options or constraints. They'll determine whether you can retire when you want or whether you're working because you have to. They'll determine whether you're stressed about money at 55 or whether you're thinking about what's next. You can't control the economy. You can't control whether you get laid off or inherit money or face unexpected expenses. But you can control these 4 choices. And if you make them well in your 30s, you compound the benefits for the next 30 years. If you make them poorly, you compound the costs. The math is the same, only the direction changes. Like this video if it shifted how you think about this decade, and subscribe if you want to keep building better financial intuition. And here's what I really want to know. Which of these 4 decisions is the one you're actually wrestling with right now in your 30s? Are you fighting lifestyle inflation? Trying to figure out the housing decision? Procrastinating on retirement funding? Or questioning whether to invest in a new skill? Drop it in the comments. I read them, and I genuinely like to know what's real for you.